Hello again. In this next section, I want to talk to you about the various sections that you might see in your resume. The first section on your resume is going to be your identification section, and that's usually starts with your name, which is often the biggest thing on your resume. It's not uncommon for people to have their name just be slightly larger, so maybe it's like a 15-point font or a 14-point font as opposed to a 12. That's usually acceptable. Your address will typically be there. Be sure to put your permanent address if it's different than your current address. Your phone number with area code where you can be reached. Again, it's polite to indicate if it's a cell phone or a home phone number. And your email address. Just a little word of caution with your email. Hopefully most of you at this point have a professional email account with a professional sounding name. So I love snails and puppy dog tails at yahoo.com is cute, but probably not appropriate for your resume. So ideally, you want to have your first name and last name at gmail.com or whatever it is that you're using, or first initial last name. If those things are taken, you can do, first initial dash or dot. You want to keep it as easy and as simple as possible, but please keep it professional. Objective. Should there be an objective on your resume? Well, there's no consensus amongst experts, recruiters, anybody about objectives. However, 40% of employers say they want to see an objective. My advice to you is if you're going to use an objective, please make it specific. Make your objective specific. Include the title, the field, the industry of the position you're seeking. Don't just simply use that same resume over and over and over again with the same objective over and over again. Tailor your objective to match the job. Please do not include what you're expecting from the company. Always tell what you can do for the company. In the years that I spent recruiting, I would oftentimes see people include things like, my objective is to find a job with good benefits. Okay, well, everybody probably wants that same thing, right? So I have no reason to call you over anyone else. So please, if you're going to use an objective, make sure that it's effective. Education versus experience. What comes first? Well, general rule of thumb is if you're a current college student or about to graduate, you generally list your education first. It really is a preference, to be honest with you. If you're currently working, then you're going to generally list your experience first. If you're working and you're going to school, you make the call. It's a preference thing, but oftentimes it's attractive when you're a fresh graduate to put that and highlight that right on the front there. Education. So typically you want to list the most recent school that you've attended as far as your college goes. If you've attended multiple colleges, like 4 or 5, then you probably only want to put the college where you graduated. That's typically the one where you've earned your degree is typically going to be the most important. Any degrees that you've earned, should be listed there. Any majors or minors that you focused on should be listed there. The date attended or graduation date. So I've highlighted date attended or graduation date because I want to caution you, if you're going to be including your high school information on your resume, which many people don't, I don't, there's not a need to, since I do have some college background at this point. But if you're going to be including your high school information on there and you're a recent high school graduate, please don't include the graduation date. People make assumptions about our work abilities based on our perceived age. And so if you're saying that you graduated in 2000, which wouldn't be the case probably for any of you, people will make assumptions about your abilities or your inabilities based on that number that they're seeing. So no need for that. We all have our own outstanding skills and abilities. It's just safe to leave graduation dates off when it comes to high school graduation. You want to be judged and evaluated based on what you can bring to the organization, not on a date that you graduated where somebody might be trying to figure out how old you are. Not appropriate. Experience. Experience is always going to be listed on your resume. And remember, experience can be paid part-time and full-time positions, internships, volunteer work, club, campus, group involvement. Even significant course projects. So a lot of times when I teach career planning on campus, students will say, well, I don't have any experience. And I think to myself, well, what an opportunity you have as a student at City College. Particularly if you're on campus, it's easier to get engaged in things we have in our campus community. But if you don't have any experience, really now's the time. Get yourself in an internship, volunteer, build your resume, gain life skills. All of those kinds of things count as experience. So words to get hired by on your resume. So let's talk about job seekers language. So don't use phrases such as responsible for, duties included. Those kinds of phrases are job descriptions and they're boring. Instead, focus on accomplishments you've made, initiatives that you took. Whenever you can, you want to write each of those things down. Okay, so use action words, um, coordinated, facilitated, things like that. Use other action words as opposed to simply job descriptions. Transferable skills. So sometimes people have a difficult time trying to figure out what skills go on their resume. And your task is to figure out what transferable skills you might have that belong on your resume. So transferable skills are skills obtained through any of the experiences in your life, including extracurricular activities, sports, classroom experiences that can transfer and apply to the kind of job you want when you graduate. Anything can be a transferable skill. It's up to you to sell it. When I didn't have much experience on my resume, I frequently would talk about the fact that I was an athlete. And all of the things that I gained being an athlete, the discipline that I gained, the belief in myself that I gained, so much, my leadership experience that I gained. I gained so much from being a student and an athlete that, it's hard to quantify right now. But when I used to include that on my resume and I would talk about it, very passionately, because for me, that was a transferable skill I felt like I could bring into the workplace. So your task is to think of what your transferable skills are. So again, if you don't have any work experience, we kind of just covered this. Other things can count, so internships, volunteer work, if you're involved in any organizations in the community or on campus, extracurricular things, athletic kinds of things, research projects, papers, anything that you're super proud of that you put a lot of effort into can count as experience. The don'ts of resume writing. No typing errors, please. It's important to proofread your work. That's why I'm having you all submit a draft of your resume. I want you to, some of you all may be looking for jobs now, others of you will be in the future, but if you have a draft that you're working with right now, when it comes time for you to get your resume out there, it'll at least be a better draft because you're going to submit one to me and you have a chance to refine it for your next employer. No misspellings. Again, please take care to proofread your work. Don't tell a lie or a mistruth. Be completely honest on your resume. You want an organization that wants you for you. Anything you put on your resume is fair game. So if you put it on there, you've got to be able to defend it, talk about it, with passion and knowledge. And if it's not true, that's probably going to convey. Don't include any negative information, reasons for being fired, things like that, a boss that you didn't like, somebody you didn't get along with. Don't include those kinds of things on a resume. There's a place for that, and that's sometimes it's in the interview, but again, you want to leave negativity out of your interview altogether. If you have questions about how to get out of tricky situations like that, I'd be happy to help you with that. If your resume is longer than a page, make it 2 pages and create balance and symmetry in the presentation. Oftentimes I see people sort of think, oh my gosh, I need to put my resume all together in 1 page, and it's all smushed, there's no white space, and it's difficult to read. If it's 2 pages, make it 2 pages. Everyone will be okay. Points to remember. A good resume has balance between presentation and content. Be sure your resume represents you in the best light possible. Use the correct resume form to highlight your skills, ability, and your work experience. A resume doesn't get you the job, but it hopefully gets you an interview. And use a good cover letter to get your foot in the door. We won't talk about cover letters too much, other than a couple of references here, but there are lots of good cover letter samples. Cover letters typically just need to be a few paragraphs long where you're describing your interest, a little bit about your skills, and then sort of closing, reasserting your interest and a few strengths that you think might benefit the organization. All right, so that concludes the brief presentation on resume writing. Thank you.